89 days ago, Alex Eala walked off a practice court at the Rafa Nadal Academy in Mallorca and told a hitting partner something that made him laugh. She said she wanted to win a match on clay that actually mattered. Not a first-round gift against a qualifier playing on fumes. Not a dead rubber at a 250 where the crowd couldn't fill a hotel lobby. She wanted to walk onto red dirt at a WTA 1000, face someone dangerous, and walk off having proven something nobody could dismiss. On April 24th in Madrid, she gets that exact chance. And the opponent waiting on the other side of the net is Elise Mertens, the world's #1 doubles player, the 19th seed, a woman who once dismantled Eala so thoroughly in Monastir that the second set scoreline read 6-love. Let that simmer for a second. 6-love. October 2023. The Jasmine Open in Tunisia. Eala was ranked somewhere deep in the 100s, still figuring out how to maintain composure across an entire match against touring veterans. Mertens, then ranked in the low 30s, broke her apart with surgical precision in that second set, 7-5, 6-0. It wasn't cruel. It was worse than cruel. It was indifferent. Mertens played like she was checking off a to-do list before dinner. 2.5 years later, these two women are about to collide again on a surface that has historically humiliated one of them and quietly sustained the other. And the circumstances around this match are so layered, so tangled with contradictory evidence, that trying to predict what happens on that court at the Caja Magica is an exercise in choosing which version of Alex Eala you believe in. Start with what happened just hours ago on Wednesday evening at the Estadio Aranza Sanchez Vicario. Eala walked out to face Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova, a woman who once reached a French Open final, a woman who has won titles on clay, and she put her away 6-3, 6-3 in an hour and 31 minutes. Clean. Clinical. Not flashy. Not dominated by her forehand or some wild blitz of winners. She won it by doing something far more interesting. She refused to make mistakes. She landed 68% of her first serves and converted 76% of those into points won. She played patient baseline tennis, waited for Pavlyuchenkova to spray errors, and when the Russian took 2 medical timeouts that fractured the rhythm of the match, Eala was the one who recalibrated faster. That matters more than the scoreline. Recalibration speed is one of the invisible skills that separates players who survive on clay from players who crumble. Clay punishes impatience. Clay punishes ego. Clay makes you earn everything twice because the surface eats pace and gives your opponent an extra half-second to recover. Eala showed, against Pavlyuchenkova, that she understands this at a gut level. She didn't try to blast through the match. She absorbed what was happening, stayed compact, and let the other woman beat herself. Now here is where the story gets thorny. Pavlyuchenkova came into Madrid having lost every single main draw match she had played in 2026. 9 consecutive defeats before qualifying. Brisbane, the Australian Open, Abu Dhabi, Qatar, Dubai, Dubrovnik, all first-round losses. The woman Eala beat on Wednesday is ranked 116th in the world and was visibly compromised physically. So the question floating in the air over every breathless headline about that 6-3 win is a cold one. Does this prove anything at all? And that is the central tension heading into Friday. Because Elise Mertens is not Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova in April 2026. Mertens is a completely different animal. Look at what the Belgian has done this year. She reached the 4th round of the Australian Open, pushing through Terarudi, Yukijima, and Bartomkova without dropping a set before running into Rybakina, who crushed her. She won the Australian Open doubles title with Zhang Shuai, reclaiming the world #1 ranking in doubles. At Indian Wells, she beat Buxa and then lost to Bencic in the 3rd round. At Dubai, she hammered Buzkova and Navarro, beating the 14th seed 6-2, 6-2, before taking a set off Goff in a 3-set loss where she led and nearly stole the match. In Stuttgart just 6 days ago, she beat Ella Seidel 6-3, 6-4 in the first round, then won the opening set 6-1 against Karolina Machova in the second round before collapsing across the next 2 sets, losing 6-1, 3-6, 0-6. That Stuttgart collapse against Machova is the single most important data point heading into Friday, and almost nobody is talking about it in the right way. Mertens didn't just lose that match. She won the first set so emphatically that it felt like a statement. Then something inside the match shifted, and she could not stop the bleeding. Machova figured her out tactically, began redirecting shots into Mertens' backhand corner with increasing depth and spin, and Mertens simply could not adjust. She won 0 games in the third set. 0. That pattern, dominance followed by total capitulation when an opponent finds the right lever, is relevant because it tells you something about Mertens' singles game in 2026. She is capable of stretching sequences of brilliant, controlled tennis, but she has shown vulnerability when forced to reinvent herself mid-match. Her singles record stands at 12-7 this year, and while that includes some impressive scalps, the losses have come with a consistent signature. She gets outmaneuvered rather than overpowered. Now turn to Eala. Forget the Pavlyuchenkova match for a moment and look at her full 2026 season, because this is where the picture gets genuinely complicated. She started the year by reaching the semifinals in Auckland, beating Donna Vekic, Petra Marcinko, and Magda Linette before losing a 3-set heartbreaker to Sinew Wang. A first-round loss at the Australian Open to Alicia Parks followed, ugly, painful, the kind of match where nothing goes right and you leave the court wondering if the previous week was a fluke. Then she regrouped. Hobart brought a quarterfinal. Doha was a quick exit. But then came the American swing and everything changed. At Indian Wells, Eala became the first Filipino ever to play a main draw match at that tournament. She beat Diana Yastremska in a 3-set war, then took apart Coco Gauff 6-2 before Gauff retired trailing 0-2 in the second set. The Gauff win was her third top-5 victory in under a year. Let that register. 20 years old. 3 top-5 wins. From the Philippines, a country that had never produced a professional tennis player of this caliber. She lost to Noskova in the 4th round 2-6, 0-6. A familiar pattern that we will return to, but the damage was done. Her ranking surged to a career-high 29th in the world. Miami followed. She beat Siegmund in 3 sets, then Linette again, then ran into Machova in the 4th round and got demolished 0-6, 2-6. Sound familiar? The same Machova who just folded Mertens in Stuttgart. And then the clay began. Linz. A solid first-round win over Julia Grabher, followed by a tight, competitive loss to Yelena Ostapenko, the 4th seed, 4-6, 5-7. Stuttgart. A first-round exit to Leylah Fernandez, 1-6, 4-6. 2 tournaments on clay, 2 early exits against quality opposition. And beneath those results, the thing that everyone keeps pointing at, the serve. Colin Fleming flagged it on Sky Sports after the Pavlyuchenkova match. Andrea Petkovic has written about it. Multiple analysts have circled the same weakness. Eala won only 37% of her second serve points against Pavlyuchenkova. 37%. On a surface where rallies are longer and service games are already harder to hold, that number is a blinking warning light. When her first serve lands, she is formidable. 76% of first serve points won on Wednesday. But when it misses, she becomes exposed, and the second delivery lacks the pace or placement to put opponents on the back foot. This is not a new observation. It has followed her all season. At Indian Wells, Noskova read the second serve early and attacked it relentlessly, and that 0-6 second set was the result. At Miami, Machova did the same thing. On hard courts, Eala can sometimes compensate because the surface gives her pace and her return game is among the most disruptive in the top 50. On clay, where the bounce sits up and the server gets less free help from the surface, that second serve becomes a buffet table for an experienced returner. And Elise Mertens is an experienced returner. More than experienced, she is clinical. She has built an entire career on staying in rallies, reading patterns, and making opponents earn every single point. She does not blow you off the court. She grinds you down. She occupies the baseline like someone who pays rent there. And she will see that Eala's second serve coming from a mile away. So there's the setup, and it looks bad for Eala on paper. a player with a 39.1% career win rate on clay, who has never beaten a top 30 player on the surface, who has never reached a WTA clay court quarterfinal, whose serve becomes a liability every time she steps on red dirt, facing a veteran-seeded player who crushed her the only time they played. But paper does not play tennis. There is something happening with Eala in 2026 that defies the statistical snapshot. Not just the results, though those speak loudly enough. She was ranked 140th in the world barely 12 months ago and now sits at 44, having touched 29 at her peak. It is the way she handles adversity inside matches. Watch the Yastremska match at Indian Wells, where she trailed and clawed back in 3 sets. Watch the Siegemund match in Miami, where she lost the first set tiebreak and then calmly took the next 2 sets. Watch even the Pavlyuchenkova match, where the 2 medical timeouts could easily have derailed a young player's concentration, and instead Eala broke to love immediately after the first interruption. She has also now been training at altitude and on clay at the Rafa Nadal Academy since early April. She has been specifically preparing for this stretch of the calendar. And Madrid's altitude, roughly 650 meters above sea level, changes the physics of clay court tennis in ways that might quietly favor her. The ball flies faster through thinner air. Spin behaves differently. The court plays quicker than Roland Garros or Rome. For a player whose natural game is built on clean ball striking and precise timing rather than heavy topspin, Madrid's conditions narrow the gap between what clay usually demands and what Eala naturally provides. Pavlyuchenkova, of all people, might have identified the thing that everyone else is overlooking. In her post-match interview, translated from Russian, she said something striking about Eala. "I don't think she has any wow shots or serves, but she plays very consistently, without any mistakes." Quite a Spanish style of tennis, which, in principle, is what is needed on clay. A Spanish style. Think about what that means. Consistent depth. Willingness to work the point. Comfort in long rallies. Ability to defend without panicking and then transition to offense when the opening appears. That is not the profile of a player who should be written off on clay. That is the profile of a player who might simply need more time on the surface, more matches against quality opponents in meaningful settings, before the results start reflecting the underlying game. And this match against Mertens is exactly that kind of match. Meaningful setting, quality opponent, real stakes. If Eala wins, she beats a top 30 player on clay for the first time in her career and reaches the 3rd round of a WTA 1000 on the surface for the first time. She would likely face Maria Sakkari next, which would be another step into deeper water. The draw has opened up for her. Ekaterina Alexandrova, the 14th seed who was supposed to anchor this section, withdrew at the last minute. Mertens, at 19, is now the highest seed in the quarter. But let's be precise about what Mertens brings. She is not just a defensive grinder. She has evolved her singles game this year, showing the ability to step inside the baseline and take time away from opponents. Her performance against Navarro at Dubai 6-2, 6-2 against the 14th seed, was as aggressive and purposeful as anything she has produced in years. She reads the court beautifully. Her anticipation is elite. She knows how to construct points on clay because she grew up playing on it in Belgium, and her movement on the surface is quiet and economical in a way that Eala's still is not. The matchup, tactically, comes down to a simple question. Can Eala survive her own service games long enough to make Mertens uncomfortable on hers? If this match goes to long rallies on the Mertens serve, the Belgian is in trouble because Eala's return game is genuinely elite. She reads serving patterns early, positions herself aggressively, and can redirect pace with a lefty's natural angles that create geometry most right-handed servers are not accustomed to facing. But if Eala's service games become short, error-filled nightmares, if the double faults pile up, if the second serve sits in Mertens' hitting zone, then the match will tilt the same way Monastir tilted, and the scoreline will be familiar and grim. There is one more factor that deserves attention, and it is the hardest to quantify. Eala said something in her post-match interview on Wednesday, switching mid-sentence from English to Spanish, that revealed how deeply she has internalized Madrid as a place. Every time that I come here, I feel so comfortable and at home, she said. I've been in Spain for so many years. She has lived and trained at the Rafa Nadal Academy since she was 13. She speaks the language. She knows the culture. The Caja Magica is not a foreign environment for her, it is an extension of the world she has inhabited for nearly half her life. That psychological comfort is not nothing. It shows up in the feet, in the shoulders, in the half-second of extra calm between the ball toss and the swing. After Indian Wells, sitting in a press room in the California desert, she said something else that has stayed with me. I know that I belong here. So it doesn't matter if I win the tournament or if I lose in the first round. I know I'm here and I'm here to stay. That is not the language of a player who will shrink on Friday. What happens when she walks onto that court against Mertens will not be decided by rankings or head-to-head records or career clay court win percentages. It will be decided in real time, point by point, in the space between what Eala's serve allows and what her return game can take. The serve is the lock. The return is the key. Whether the key can turn fast enough before the lock jams, that is the whole match, compressed into a single mechanical question that no statistic can answer in advance. Mertens will be favored. She should be. She is the more experienced clay court player, the higher-ranked singles player, and she has already beaten Eala decisively. But Eala is not the same person who walked onto that court in Monastir. She is not even the same person who lost to Fernandez in Stuttgart 8 days ago. She is a player in motion, changing faster than the results can track, and Madrid at altitude with its quickened courts and its forgiving bounce might be the exact place where the gap between who she has been on clay and who she is becoming finally closes. Friday will tell us. And whatever it tells us, it will not whisper.